Hey guys, welcome back to Andrew Upshaw Fishing. Got a brand new video for you today. This topic right here now, this is one that's definitely going to help you put more bass in the boat. It's one that's kind of off the beaten path and pros definitely don't want to talk to you about. So today we're going to dive deep into color and why color is very important when throwing swim baits. For more, make sure you stay tuned right after this. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode here on Andrew Upshaw Fishing. Today we're diving deep into color of swim baits. One thing I get from most of you out there is why are swim baits important? And really and truly, I get all these messages about people telling me, man, I went out there and threw a swim bait, but I don't think I was throwing the right color and I never had a bite. I never even had a fish chase it. Well, today we're going to dive into that color selection and help you pick the right color the next time you're on the water to help you catch more bass. So that's what we're doing today. We're going to dive into color, and I'm going to explain to you when and where to throw each one of these colors. Now, when it comes to swim baits, I actually started out throwing one particular swim bait, and it was a Reaction Innovation Skinny Dipper. It was one of the very first swim baits I ever had success on, and I caught the living crap out of them on that bait. It didn't matter if it was in a bluegill color, a shad color. When those swim baits first came out, you could take them to just about any lake and catch fish on them. Well, just like anything else, the abundance of anglers throwing swim baits, different colors of swim baits, fish kind of started seeing all of them. So the pressure kind of started getting to the bass. Not to say you can't still catch them on a skinny dipper, but times have changed. And so have the swim baits, which is a good thing because swim baits have definitely evolved into the, a smorgasbord from, 15, 18 inchers that they throw out in California all the way to 2-inch swim baits that they catch them on at like Smith Lake and other lakes like that. But color, to me, unlike most cases, soft plastics, I don't think color is as important sometimes. But for the case of swim baits and getting bass to bite swim baits, I think color is extremely, extremely important. And not so much as this one has a little bit of purple and this one has a little bit of red, but more so the shade of the bait, whether it's more transparent or more white. And I really think that's where I like to dive into it to kind of see what the conditions call for. A lot of times throwing swim baits, it's much more about conditions than the actual fish that you're fishing for. So we'll dive into right now. We're in the pre-spawn. The fish are kind of transitioning to that shallow water. That's when I go a tiny bit more realistic with my swim bait offering. I'll go to more natural colors, like this ghost shad, electric shad, something that is a little bit more alive looking, something that looks like something that you're matching in the water, whether it's an alewife, a shad, a threadfin, any type of bait fish that you're trying to imitate. That's when I go more natural. Does watercolor play a difference? Absolutely. If the water's super muddy, I'm probably not going to pick up a swim bait. Let's just be honest here. I might pick up a swim jig or a chatterbait or something like that. But for the case of a swim bait, I feel like if you have at least 2 foot of visibility, it's time to pick up a swim bait. Because what those fish do, they use it as, it's more of a visual bait for fish. I think the better they can see it, the more likely they are to eat it. So if you're trying to fish this on a really dirty place, I'm telling you guys, you're wasting your time. A swim jig might be the better offering because it adds a little bit more bulk, moves the water a little bit more, and those fish can see it better. Because at the end of the day, I truly think when it comes to swim baits, it's all about what they see above them. They see that shad, they see that bluegill, whatever it may be, and that's when they're going to eat it. So, like I said, we're in the pre-spawn right now. In the pre-spawn, I tend to go way more natural. Now, if I'm on a place like Smith Lake, Hartwell, Lanier, places like that, I'm going small this time of year. I'm going to like a 2.75 inch rage swimmer, and I'm throwing it in the most natural color that I can find. Ghost shad, electric shad, Kitex work too. Any of those really small 2.5 to 3 inch swim baits are going to be the ticket for you. The shad seem to be a lot smaller the first part of the year, and that's how I catch those bass. That is a big, big key on those deeper, clearer reservoirs. The bigger swim baits just kind of overwhelm the bass. I think it's more than they want to bite off, basically. They don't want to go chase down the biggest meal. They want the easiest, smallest It's more about quantity instead of quality in this situation. They want as many shad as they can eat at once. That's why baits like umbrella rigs work so well that time of year, because they're trying to eat as many shad as they can. They're worried much more about numbers than individuals. So that's when the smaller swim baits tend to work better. Now, if you're on a lake like a Guntersville, Kentucky Lake, Toledo Bend, Sam Rayburn, these southern lakes that have big bass in them that aren't as clear, that's when I'm going to upsize my swim bait slightly. You're going to go up to that 4.5 to 5.5 inch swim bait, whether it's on an umbrella rig or a single swim bait alike, and they're off on that little bit deeper water. You definitely want that little bit bigger profile because they can see it from further away. But in the case of what I'm throwing color-wise, I'm still going to go natural unless the water's just a little bit too dingy or I'm having to keep that bait down past 15 foot. Now, if I'm fishing in 15 foot or more and I'm fishing that swim bait really low, that's when I'm going to a solid white swim bait. You know, I want something that stands out because, like I said earlier, these fish are feeding on sight, what they can see. You know, don't get me wrong, they can feel those vibrations when they come by you, but a swim bait doesn't have that many vibrations. It's not like a lipless crankbait or a chatterbait that's swimming by them. You know, those are just stuff like that. These swim baits are real subtle. It's a real subtle action. So if you're deeper than 15 foot on a dirtier place, go to the white swim bait. You're going to see a load of difference between this one and this one. But as you can see, one's a little more transparent, one's more white. So like I said, 15 foot or deeper on a dingier body of water like a Sam Rayburn, Toledo Bend, Guntersville, I go for a white swim bait. Those clear body of waters, I'm going to go to a smaller swim bait but more transparent in the pre-spawn. Now this is where it gets really interesting, guys, and this is something that I think we should all take into account and that you should definitely listen to if you like or want to learn more about swim bait. The spawn is one of the very best times to throw a swim bait. Obviously, there's so many fish up there super shallow. They're up there spawning. They're guarding their nests. These big females are sitting there waiting, you know, letting their eggs marinate, letting the male do its thing. But you have these little bluegills that swim through. You have these big shad that swim through. Something about that time of year, you can get bit on wackier colors. You know, one of my favorite colors to throw is like a line through swim bait like this one here. Solid white. It's goofy looking. Like any other time of year, you might as well put that thing up because you're not going to catch anything on it. But during the spawn, throwing a 7-inch, a 5-inch line through swim bait can reap the benefits. Now, granted, if you're fishing around cover, and a lot of times those spawning bass are around cover, you and I both know that. That's when I'll actually go to a more of like a rage swimmer, like a 5.75, a 4.75, and I'll throw a white. This one right here is an IU, I think it's the color name of this. Or no, this is Green Pumpkin Pearl. This is a phenomenal color because something about it has that mix between a bluegill and a shad, but you can see it, the fish can see it from a long ways off. If you swim this thing by one of those fish's nest, they're gonna turn around and eat it. I absolutely stay away from the transparent swim baits during the spawn unless I'm on a very clear reservoir. I mean, one that you can see 10, 15, 20 foot down. Then I'm downsizing my swim bait. I'm going from the 5.5, 4 3/4 inch swim baits, and I'm going to a 3 1/4 inch swim bait. I'm going to a lot smaller swim bait. Max size I go to is a 3.75, so I'm keeping it between a 3.25 and 3.75, and that will actually trigger those spawning fish. You can, like, I'm a big time sight fisherman. I don't know if everybody knows that, but I love to catch fish off beds. That's one of my favorite things in the world to do. But one trick, and I hope you take this to the bank and cash it. One trick is you can take these little swim baits on those real clear body of water, and you can chunk it out in front of you and just reel it normal. You can throw it on bait casting rod, you can throw it on any of that stuff, and just reel it like normal, and just look around. You can use your glasses, you can look in the water, look for spawners. You can just throw that swim bait out in front of you, and those bass will come out there and attack it, and it is some of the most vicious strikes you've ever had, because it doesn't matter if it's green pumpkin, doesn't matter if it's shad color. All it needs to do is be small and swim through their bed. I can promise you, if you're a long cast away from those fish and you swim that swim bait over that bed, they're gonna eat it. One outlier that I still to this day think that it means everything whenever fishing those spawning fish with a swim bait. I'll throw the shad colors, especially if maybe I'm the only one that's figured it out, or maybe I'm in an area that there's not a lot of pressure. But I will go to bluegill color swim baits. I'll throw, whether it's a skinny dipper, a rage swimmer, a 4-inch rage swimmer, but I want it to be bluegill. I'll paint it up. I'll make it look extremely like a bluegill. I want it to be as natural and realistic as possible. I want it to look like a bluegill, because if you swim that bluegill swim bait by that bed, that big fish that you might not be able to see with your glasses has a really likely chance of eating that bait. And I'm not just saying hitting it, I'm saying eat it. And it is some of the most vicious swim bait strikes you'll ever have. Now, if we're transitioning now to the spawn, we've had the most fun of our lives up there throwing these big swim baits up there around the spawn. That's when I'm gonna transition to the post spawn, and that's one of the very best times to catch them on a swim bait. The cool thing is when you get on these dingier places like Pickwick, Toledo Bend, Sam Rayburn, those fish start sucking off the banks. They're in herds out there. They're just going out there super deep. One of the biggest and easiest ways to catch them is a big jig head and a swim bait. You hear all these pros talk about it, every one of them. Well, what's the first thing I told you in the pre-spawn? You better throw white past 15 foot. Well, in the post-spawn, that is not true. Trust me. You want to go as realistic as possible in the post-spawn out deep. I know that's kind of like an oxymoron. You go deep, you're throwing more realistic. Can they really tell? They can, guys. I'm telling you, I've fished these ledge lakes a ton. I've caught thousands of bass off these ledges out there deep. If you go throw a solid white bait out there deep, you might catch some, but more than likely, if I pick up this color here, I'm going to catch way more than I would with this color here. And a lot of times it has to do with the size too. So we'll just say, for instance, I'm down here, I'm in Texas, and I'm around these big bass lakes, and I'm throwing those swim baits out deep. I'm throwing the biggest swim bait I can get my hands on. That's a soft body swim bait. So like in the case of this, I'm throwing a 5.75 inch rage swimmer. Or this is old school here, guys. This is actually probably one of the very first swim baits I ever threw. Or I'm picking up a Shadalicious, a 5.5 inch Shadalicious, and I'm kind of basing my colors off of conditions. If it's cloudy outside, I'm going more of a chartreuse shad like this one is here. It has more of a pearlescent belly. If it's sunny outside, which you know how hot it gets in the summertime, I'm going to more of a blue gizzard or a green gizzard. That's when I'm catching the fire out of them on this hollow belly swim bait. And you can kind of intermix it. That's one cool thing about swim baits. If you get on one of those real deep schools and they're loaded down there, I mean like super loaded, and you see them on your live scope, you can see them on your side imaging, and you're like, man, I know those are bass. And you throw your Shadalicious out there, or, a swimmer, any of those big hollow belly swim baits. You throw it out there and you catch 5 or 6 of them. And then all of a sudden you throw out there 5 or 6 more times, you don't get a bite. That's when you pick up the rage swimmer. Because the deal is the way these two baits swim in the water are completely different. So you can pick up that 5.5, that 4.5 inch rage swimmer, and it's going to kick completely different than this one, even on a 3/4, half 3/4, 1 ounce swim bait head. It's going to kick completely different. So they're used to this one. Frank and Fred and Velma that were sitting down there that ate this swim bait, well, they're already gone. So the other ones are a bit spooked. So now they know when this swim bait comes swimming through there, they're like, you tricked 3 of us, you ain't tricking the rest of us. But that's when you throw up that change-up. I like to call this swim bait my change-up out there in deep ledges, because people don't like to talk about this. All they like to talk about is the hollow bellies and swim baits like this, these big full body swim baits. That's all anybody wants to talk about. But you throw the change up in there, aka the rage swimmer, and you're gonna see the results. You're gonna catch more and more bass. And then once they get used to this, you pick up the hollow belly again, you're gonna start catching them again. We give bass way more credit than they deserve. I'm not saying bass aren't smart, but at the end of the day, you can trick a bass a lot of times. So now, so far, we've talked pre-spawn, spawn, post-spawn, and I've given you color options to help you catch more bass. Well, then it kind of changes again in the fall. You get to the fall, I'm upsizing my swim baits, guys. I'm going big. I'm going 6.5, 7 inch swim baits. Glide baits come into account. But at the end of the day, I'm still throwing the more natural colors. I'll shift all the way through the year, and I'll shift my swim bait colors to match the situation I'm going with, and size is an issue. I mean, you get on those clear body of water, don't get me wrong, you can catch big fish on big swim baits on those clear water, but the better they can see your bait, the more realistic it better be, or you're not going to catch bass. Alright guys, that is a wrap here for picking colors of your baits. Thank you again for watching this video. I really hope this breakdown of colors of swim baits helps you go out there and catch more bass. You know, I truly believe in this process. Like, this is something that I've formulated over the years, picking the colors for certain situations, because I'm telling you guys, when I first started throwing a swim bait, I was discouraged. And this is dating myself, but when it came to soft plastic swim baits, there really wasn't that many of them. I remember one of the very first ones I threw was a Storm swim bait, and it had the hook molded into it. And you really couldn't find many other swim baits other than that one. And I remember throwing it, and I'd catch a couple bass on it, but it really didn't click until I started seeing all these other swim baits come out, and I'd try them, and I'd just be discouraged, and I couldn't catch them. And then I started catching one here and there, and I caught another one, and I'd catch them. I'd figure out what worked on my lake, and then I could kind of work it into others. So I hope you've taken this whole array of baits, colors, and situations, and you can apply them to your lake. And that comes with one thing. If you have a question, you should drop it below about swim bait fishing. Or maybe, just maybe, you tell me what your favorite swim bait is on your body of water. And I'm going to tell you flat out, guys, I don't just throw Rage Swimmers. I don't just throw Shadalicious. I don't just throw the Smash Tech. I throw all the swim baits. I've got Kitex. I've got all of them. These are just a few that I like to throw better than others. I'll throw a Rage Swimmer. I'll put a Rage Swimmer up against a Kitex any day. I'm just telling you. It's way more durable, and I catch a lot of bass on it. So for the one or two people that drop down in the comments, tell me, oh my God, this is some big Strike King push. Whatever. You can be mad at me. That's all good. I'm telling you, I throw all these swim baits. I throw every brand. They're all good. So for more information, drop down in my description. I'm going to drop the links to these swim baits that I like to throw. I'll even drop a couple spares too. So if you watch this long, you're getting a couple extras that will definitely put fish in the boat. Thank you again for watching. If you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button in the bottom right hand corner. Drop a like on the video if you did. If you liked it, I don't know. Did you like it? I hope you liked it, because I felt pretty good about it. I felt good that the fact that what I told you will 1,000% catch you more bass the next time you go fishing. Thank you again, guys, and I'll see you on the next video.